Hey everybody, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and I'm back with the third entry in my Arkham Horror the card game campaign reviews. I've previously done the Forgotten Age and the Night of the Zealot, and now I'm coming to the first full campaign cycle that was released for the game, the Dunwich Legacy. And the last few months have been super busy. I just have so many games coming in I'm trying to cover. So I'll try to keep coming back to these every month or two, and I'll be doing the Path to Carcosa next. We'll see how it goes, but let's jump into Dunwich. So as I've done with the other videos, I'll start with the investigators. And first we have Zoe Samaras. And this is the Guardian of the set. But first I should mention the thing that Dunwich Legacy did that I thought was really cool, in that all of the new characters, all 5 of them, have a single card type they can level into, which is different than the base game characters that had 2. But they can also pick up to 5 level 0 cards from any other class. So these ones are some of the most flexible investigators in the entire game, I still think up to this point, in that they can splash in some really impactful cards from other classes as freely as they want, basically. But now getting back to Zoe, she's a great fighter. That's what she's all about. A really strong willpower stat, really strong strength. And she gets resources just for getting engaged with enemies, which is what she wants to do anyway. So she's awesome in a multiplayer game as a kind of backup fighter and such. She's not going to let you investigate as well as Roland, but she can certainly kill things. And her unique item, the cross, goes along with her ability to let her get free damage on enemies. So yeah, she just murders things. And she's really good at it. You'll find the Dunwich characters tend to be a bit more focused. And that's certainly the case with Rex Murphy, the Seeker of the set. Oh boy, this guy is nearly broken in multiplayer games sometimes, because he just hoovers up the clues. If he succeeds at an investigation by 2 or more, he gets an extra clue. And he's already got 4 intelligence, so that's going to tend to happen if he builds up his items well. So yeah, the rest of his stuff barely even matters here. He just gets clues, and he gets clues. And yeah, he can break scenarios if you don't watch him. So in some ways, I would say he's almost like a less interesting Seeker for me. But, he can still be fun if you just want to really get those clues quickly. And then for our rogue, we have Jenny Bards. And she's a personal favorite of mine, specifically for true solo play, at least at normal difficulty and easy difficulty. Because she's got a completely balanced stat line, all 3s. And in solo, you kind of need to be able to do everything sometimes, unless you want to try a specific build. So I find she does well at that. And then her special ability, she gets an extra resource every turn. And Dunwich Legacy added permanent cards that make it way easier to boost your stats in crazy ways. Although those cards are also on the taboo list as being too strong if you play with that. But yeah, I would say Jenny is not great in harder games. She's not great in multiplayer. She can kind of fill in any gap, but she's not strong in anything. But in solo play, she's one of the ones I've used the most for campaigns, and I still really enjoy her. And yeah, just to mention, her guns are nice. Her searching for Izzy can be annoying because you have to run all over the board, and if it comes out late, it can totally mess you up. But besides that, she's a solid character. And then another favorite of mine, this is a great set for investigators, by the way. If you just want to get one of the investigator expansions, now that they're separated out, I think Dunwich Legacy is a hard one to beat. We have Ashcan Pete, popular guy in all the Arkham games pretty much. So he's got a pet dog named Duke, and that's kind of his whole thing. His stat line is not that great. He's got a good willpower, but he can't really fight or investigate that well. But Duke, on the other hand, has an excellent fight action, has an excellent investigate action. Now, they're not quite as good as they seem because it's not easy to boost ally stats as easy as it is to boost your actual character. So sometimes you can get into situations, especially at harder difficulty settings, where this fight and investigate aren't enough. But in any case, Ashcan is a ton of fun to play, and his innate ability to ready assets can be used in a lot of fun ways. Now, Racked by Nightmares is going to cost you a ton of actions and take away your use of Duke for a little while, so that's not too fun. But yeah, really enjoyable character overall. Definitely another favorite of mine. And then finally, the one I've played the least, because I just don't run Mystic characters that often, is Jim Culver. He's all about the skeleton icons on the Chaos tokens, because there's zeros for him, and if he gets his trumpet, they give him bonuses. And he also combos with some of the spells released in this expansion, and a few others that call for specific icons to be drawn from the Chaos bag, or want you to draw a skull. So he's got some cool stuff going on. And I do like his stat line. He's able to do a lot of stuff. He can help out with the investigating and the fighting if absolutely necessary. So yeah, I think Jim Culver is not a standout character, but certainly has some cool things, and you can kind of build some decks around his skull focus if you want to. Now, getting to campaign mechanics, there's not really anything that's super unique in the Dunwich Legacy. Nothing major gets added, unlike Carcosa, the next one, which did add in its own kind of cool effect. The biggest thing about the Dunwich Legacy, and this plays into almost every scenario, is that it has a heavy focus on getting allies. And to avoid any heavy spoilers, I'll just show the first three that might show up. So, yeah, there's a lot of like choices in the campaign that'll have you get an ally. Bad choices or losing a scenario might lose you an ally. They like get kidnapped and stuff. But you can add in this campaign, more than any of the other ones I've played, just a ton of people to your decks if you play your cards right and resolve the scenarios in the ways you want to. And like keeping them alive is a major kind of component and narrative like aspect of the game. So if I was going to say that this had a unique mechanic, it is like this heavy focus on allies and rescuing them, but it doesn't really have as much of a mechanical implication as something like the exploration in Forgotten Age. And now quickly discussing the narrative. This one's okay. It is heavily tied into the original Lovecraft story, the Dunwich Horror, which I have read and enjoyed. So it has like lots and lots of callbacks to it. It's basically a direct sequel to it. If you haven't read that story, a lot of those things will just go over your head. Not that that really matters. But the actual like narrative is, I don't know, it seems like a little straightforward and basic. Like, there's a ritual, you have to stop it. It is kind of like the the tried and true tropey, overdone thing that's in every Arkham game released by Fantasy Flight, in like every video game on these things. You know, like you got to stop the ritual or terrible things will happen. It doesn't go much deeper than that, so it's not blowing me away. The set pieces are kind of fun, as we'll get into when we talk about the scenarios. But yeah, this one is not like a hugely impressive narrative. I think something like Forgotten Age is much more kind of exciting and nuanced. But there are, I will say, some nice moral kind of choices in here with like how you deal with some of the enemies and stuff and who you choose to rescue in some scenarios. So that's pretty neat. But yeah, not like a narrative that I would write home about. And finally, let's get into the scenarios. So first of all, I guess this is another unique thing about this campaign. You have two scenarios to choose from at the beginning, either extracurricular activity or the house always wins, and then you play the other one afterwards. And they did a cool thing here with time and how one of the scenarios will play out differently because you're there later if you make it your second choice. And they definitely like went further with this with the Scarlet Keys, at least as much as I played. I still haven't finished that one. But this was kind of like the inception of that idea, and I think it works pretty well. I think the way things change and kind of the consequences of making a choice either way are well done. These are both also cool scenarios in that they have a heavy focus on not fighting, at least at first, because you're just at a college in one and in a casino in another. This one's very similar to the one-off that I played recently. What was that? Like Fortune and Folly, I think it was called. Yeah, so this one is sort of a precursor to that. They're definitely reusing some ideas in a way. But I like both of these. I like that they start as very like exploratory, non-combat scenarios and then kind of get into combat potentially at the end. I think both of them have fun moral choices. Like, do you want to cheat at cards in The House Always Wins? Who do you want to rescue at extracurricular activity? I enjoy both of these, and I think they are a nice start off to the campaign. Next is the Miskatonic Museum, and this one is kind of a mixed bag for me. I like the different ways you can infiltrate and how that changes, like kind of who's helping you on the mission and that kind of thing. But they did two big kind of weird things in this one. Number one, they tried to have a single enemy that keeps coming back. And I think it got a bit better with the Return to Expansions changes, but it's still not my favorite thing. And then second, and this is a common thing in a lot of the scenarios in this campaign, something I don't love is that this one's pretty swingy because at the end you're looking for a specific location and spending a lot of time and resources to make him come out. And it might be the first one you get, it might be the last one you get. And that can drastically change how challenging the scenario is. And again, that happens several times in here. So this one is definitely one of my least favorite in the scenario. Not my least favorite. I'll get to that one in a second. But yeah, I don't love the Miskatonic Museum. It's okay. The Essex County Express for me is better. Now, it is, again, a very swingy one because you can actually lose this one until they added the return to changes in like the first turn if you get all the wrong draws, which is never ideal. But the concept of this one is awesome. You're running on a train. The train cars are slowly getting like torn away. You have to keep rushing forward, rushing forward, rushing forward. It does make it, in my opinion, a bit more samey play to play. So this is not like a top tier scenario. But the concept, the tension, the excitement are very strong here. I like things about this, but yeah, it's not the most balanced or the most replayable. I think Blood on the Altar is doing cooler things now, kind of like Miskatonic Museum. You again get into this swingy thing where you're trying to find 2 cards out of, I think it's 5 or 6 locations. I think it's 5. And they could be the first card you find. They could be the last card you find. But this one has really cool choices at the end. It's got kind of 2 different paths to go that can have implications for later in the campaign. And it has a very strong tension and time element in the rush that ties into that ally thing I was mentioning before. So I think this one, besides that swinginess of the locations, is a pretty successful and exciting mission. And then you get to, I think, the worst scenario of the campaign. One of the worst Arkham scenarios I've played. That's Dimension and Unseed. You're fighting these giant monsters. you have to fight them in a different way than you fought before, so it kind of makes all the cool stuff you've been building up suddenly kind of useless. There's a little bit of interesting stuff in like moving and manipulating and luring the things you're fighting. But besides that, I think this scenario is almost a complete miss. It's definitely my least favorite of the cycle, and again, one of my least favorite overall. But when Doom Awaits comes back to, like, nothing super exciting, but still a really, really solid scenario. Great time pressure, great tension as you explore these different locations, trying to get the clues you need, an exciting conclusion. This one uses all the choices you've made previously in the rest of the campaign in an effective way, like different things come back in kind of cool and interesting ways. So yeah, I like this one a lot more. It's not doing anything super exciting, but it's just a really, really solid and tense scenario that uses the campaign structure well. And then the finale of Dunwich Legacy, Lost in Time and Space. This one's pretty cool. It's kind of like a precursor, or them like first playing around with the ideas that came out in Exploration of the Forgotten Age later. This whole idea of like a location deck and putting out cards. It does have a lot of swinginess, I would say even more than Forgotten Age. I've played this one and beaten it with zero trouble whatsoever, and I've also played it and gotten a lot of the wrong draws at the wrong times and gotten totally massacred. So it can go in different ways, but I think the ideas here are cool. I do feel like Scenario 7 is like the real ending of the campaign, and this is sort of like kind of an epilogue mission, so the narrative like element is not as strong for me. But it's neat, and they are playing with some different mechanics here. I think it works pretty well, but sometimes it's going to be unsatisfying when you play it. Like, I think I've gone through this campaign 4 times. It's been like good 2 of those times. Yeah, so overall, as you can probably tell from those scenario descriptions, I think Dunwich Legacy is mid-tier campaign for me. I know some people love it and it's their favorite, but it's definitely not the case for me. Several of the scenarios I think are pretty flawed, and again, one of them is one of the worst I've played in the entire game. But some other ones are really fun. I think overall the campaign comes together pretty well. But honestly, my favorite thing with the Dunwich Legacy are the investigators that came out of it. So if you're like vacillating between the two, the campaign expansion and the investigator expansion, for my taste, and this is just my opinion, I would say definitely get the investigators. Maybe look at other campaigns first and come back to this one later. But again, other people disagree with me and think this is the best one in the game. So, your results may vary. But thanks for watching, everybody. I'll get to Carcosa sometime in the next month or two. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.